Good morning and welcome to Daily Devotions with Pastor Joe. I'm Pastor Joe. We're going to be looking again at Esther. Only a couple more times to go and we'll be through Esther. This is Esther chapter 8, beginning with verses 1 through 17. And it says here, "On that day did the king Ahasuerus give the house of Haman the Jews' enemy unto Esther the queen. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he was unto her. And the king took off his ring, which he had taken for Haman, and gave it unto Mordecai. And Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman. And Esther spake yet again before the king, and fell down at his feet, and besought him with tears to put away the mischief of Haman the Agagite, and his device that he had devised against the Jews. Then the king held out the golden sceptre toward Esther. So Esther arose and stood before the king, and said, If it please the king, and if I have found favor in his sight, and the thing seem right before the king, and I be pleasing in his eyes, let it be written to reverse the letters devised by Haman the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, which he wrote to destroy the Jews which are in all the king's provinces. For how can I endure to see the evil that shall come unto my people, or how can I endure to see the destruction of my kindred? Then the king Ahasuerus said unto Esther the queen, and to Mordecai the Jew, Behold, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and him they have hanged upon the gallows, because he laid his hand upon the Jews. Write ye also for the Jews, as it liketh you, in the king's name, and seal it with the king's ring. For the writing which is written in the king's name, and sealed with the king's ring, may no man reverse. Then were the king's scribes called at that time in the 3rd month, that is, the month Sivan, on the 3rd and 20th day thereof. And it was written according to all that Mordecai commanded unto the Jews, and to the lieutenants, and the deputies, and rulers of the provinces which are from India unto Ethiopia, and 127 provinces, unto every province according to the writing thereof, and unto every people after their language, and to the Jews according to their writing, and according to their language." And he wrote in the king Ahasuerus' name, and sealed it with the king's ring, and sent letters by posts on horseback, and riders on mules, camels, and young dromedaries, wherein the king granted the Jews which were in every city to gather themselves together, and to stand for their life, to destroy, to slay, and to cause to perish all the power of the people and province that would assault them, both little ones and women, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. Upon one day in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, namely upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, the copy of the writing for the commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, and that the Jews should be ready against that day to avenge themselves on their enemies. So the posts that rode upon mules and camels went out, being hastened and pressed on by the king's commandment, and the decree was given at Shushan the palace. And Mordecai went out from the presence of the king in royal apparel of blue and white, and with a great crown of gold, and with a garment of fine linen and purple. And the city of Shushan rejoiced and was glad. The Jews had light and gladness and joy and honor. And in every province, and in every city, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a good day. And many of the people of the land became Jews, for the fear of the Jews fell upon them. And so this is kind of just my thoughts of what I'm pulling out of the story really quickly. You heard the whole tale there of what happens. Haman had just been hung on his own gallows. He was gone. There was no more Haman in this story. So the first part of the battle was over. Haman was dead. They no longer had their sworn enemy, their enemy who had organized all of this massive amount of trouble to be caused into their life. So they had finished the first part of the battle, but they didn't stop there and say, well, that's good enough. Now that he's not there to pay, maybe people won't go and hurt the Jews. No, instead, now that he was dead, they said, we've got a little bit done, we've got to keep going. And so they had to continue pressing in on the battle, because the thing is, this law was still in place that Haman had written. It was still signed with the king's name and stamped with the king's ring, and so it could not be reversed. It was, as we hear in the book of Daniel, in the laws of the Medes and Persians, which cannot be reversed. In the same way, these laws could not be reversed. Once that stamp was on it and it was sent out, that law was law, and there was no changing it. And so there was still a day where all of the people of all of the provinces were free to murder the Jews any way they wanted to and steal their things. And so the Israelites had to do something about this. Mordecai and Esther had to do something to complete the victory. As we've been looking in at the book of Joshua and starting to look into Judges, we see that the Israelites had never really finished the work that they were called to do, and because of that they suffered greatly for it. And the same would have been true here. If they would have decided, well, that's good enough, let's let the chips lay where they may fall, right? That would have never worked. It would have been so much carnage and bloodshed and damage and hurt to them. So that law was still in place. They had to do something about it. And Esther comes into the king, and again, just like before, he extends the golden scepter and says, whatever you want, let me know. And she tells him, she says, if I've really found favor in your sight, if you really love me, if you really want to help me, I need to do something to reverse this law that Haman has written. He says, here's the ring, here's my scribes, do whatever it takes. He says, I don't know what to do. You do whatever it takes, because this law cannot be reversed. And so Mordecai, Esther gives the ring and the scribes and everybody to Mordecai. Mordecai tells the scribes what to write. He's got the authority to write a new law to help save their lives, and he decides, all right, let's write a counter law. And the new law says that the Jews are allowed to defend themselves, to do whatever it takes to defend themselves if they are getting attacked by the other people, that they had the power and the authority to use any force necessary to defend themselves, and that in turn they could take the people's things. And all of this turns around to many people, it says, deciding that they would just be Jews instead of having to deal with it. It says in verse 17, the last part says, and many of the people of the land became Jews, for fear of the Jews fell upon them. So they were afraid of being killed by the Jews, and they decided, we're going to join their side. We're going to be among them. And so it's an interesting turn in the story. It's a really good part of the story. We're going to hear more about the feasting and things that happen after this, because they actually end up writing laws that allow it to continue on day after day. And it's an interesting victory. It's a powerful victory. It's something that we couldn't have seen coming if it hadn't been for Esther being where she should be, and Mordecai doing what he should do, and standing up for what was right way back when he rescued the king from the hands of those two who tried to kill him. Just if it hadn't been for people obeying God throughout this story, who knows what would have happened. But instead, everything gets turned around here because these people have put their faith and reliance in God, and everything's working out because they really did lean on God for the victory in all of this. So I would encourage you this morning to lean on God for the victory. No, I don't believe you should seek after other people's lives the way they did here in this story. That is something that, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit out there, but I do believe that if you seek God and you ask for His help in all of the situations that you face, especially the oppression that is faced from outside, especially if you're being persecuted for righteousness' sake, as it says in the Sermon on the Mount, seek after God and He will take care of the situation. He'll take care of the vengeance. He'll take care of the revenge. He'll work out every situation. And no matter what happens in this life, we know that we've got a God who has control over all of eternity, who sees the end from the beginning and knows how the end is going to be. Evildoers, as the psalmist said, will be put away. They will be utterly destroyed. As long as you keep yourself in the grace of God, you have no fear of those things, but you also have the authority to come to Him and ask for His rescue, just the way they came and found rescue from the king through this new law. So, God bless. I hope you have a great day in the Lord today. Take care of yourselves and enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the Lord's Day tomorrow. And I'll see you again tomorrow on another daily devotion with Pastor Joe.